Did you get booted out or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, welcome back to Pass the Gravy podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the final season of the Clone Wars, season 7. And Darwin, do you want to start off with your thoughts?
Um, what a rough start. Like, I did not. I think this might have been the worst season of Clone Wars, just because I didn't enjoy the Bad Batch. I definitely think that instead of doing the Bad Batch, I think they really should have done like Delta Squad from like the Old Republic Commandos just to bring that back into the canon because that was such a more popular game. And then just the sisters with Ahsoka arc, like it did not need to be there. It was definitely filler, and especially because those two arcs were like 4 episodes long, it definitely felt like padding. Like it definitely did not need to be there. And I think I'd rather have bad episodes that make sense in the story than have padding, because like I almost just stopped watching this season of Clone Wars because of it.
Yeah, that's
But it's
that's
just
rough.
but it's frustrating because this is the final season. I mean, we've talked about this a lot and how it kind of felt like they were wasting their opportunities on these two arcs that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of the story of the Clone Wars. Like them bringing back, was it Fives? I think yeah, the whole Bad Batch arc is
It
like
was
about
Echo.
them trying to
Echo.
rescue Echo. Like why bring him back? Like it takes away from his death at the Citadel. Like cuz that was one of the hardest hitting deaths in the show, and to just bring him back, I don't know. I didn't like that, and it, if anything, it detracts from the story of like the Clone Wars, because what is he doing with Bad Batch? Why does Bad Batch exist? Like I just don't understand why they would do Bad Batch over the Delta Squad, or why they couldn't have just been Rex and some of the other core members of the 501st rescuing Echo, if they were still going to do the whole Echo thing. I don't know. It was just a frustrating arc for me to watch because like whenever I saw the trailer that Clone Wars was coming back, I was hyped because Clone Wars is kind of, it solidifies and is like the prime example of like what Star Wars is to me. Because like everyone has their favorite Star Wars thing. Like for me, it's the original trilogy and Clone Wars, and like Knights of the Old Republic, and like the old Battlefront games. And to have one of these things that I was told as a child was never coming back, and then it is coming back, but then it starts off with one of the, and now that like retroactively looking back at it, is one of the worst seasons in my opinion of Clone Wars. It's very disappointing, but those are my thoughts on the first Bad Batch arc. But
Yeah. I was okay with the Bad Batch arc. The problem that I had with it is that it was a 4 episode arc when I thought it could have easily fit into 3 episodes, which I believe it in like the because they had unfinished Bad Batch episodes that were released on StarWars.com that you could watch, and so
mm-hmm.
I watched those a long time ago when the Clone Wars was canceled for the first time, and I believe that was just 3 episodes. It may have been 4 episodes, but I think it felt dragged out there at the end, and I didn't think it just felt awkward for how long
Mm-hmm.
the arc lasted. And that's the same thing with the one with the sisters Trace and Rafa, I believe their names were. It just felt like it went on for way too long. Um, and like you said earlier, we've talked about how it just feels like a wasted opportunity with this being the final season of Clone Wars. It just feels like, why would you use so much precious time dragging out these arcs that don't need to be this long? So that was my problem with the Bad Batch, and I definitely, while I might not feel as strongly as you do about Echo being brought back from the dead, I do think it does take away from his sacrifice in the Citadel arc. And now that you've pointed that out, I do think that he should have stayed dead.
Yeah, I think it should have been like a ruse, something to put Captain Rex into a trap or something. But
Yeah.
even still, I don't know.
It's just like one of
felt
those things
so-
where it's like it's like almost too good of a thing to happen. So
It's kind of amazing because Star Wars: The Clone Wars has been treated really well, like compared to other Star Wars content. Like in Rebels, Ahsoka and Rex's arc is continued. Like that doesn't happen for a lot of TV shows, and to be able to come back for a final season on like one of the most popular platforms for streaming is something that's really really amazing, especially for like fans like us, but even still it felt like such a wasted opportunity, because like, I mean, we've seen how like the highs and the lows of this show and just how amazing it can be, and then it was just disappointing, I thought.
yeah.
I mean, I like, my other problem with the Bad Batch arc, or especially Bad Batch in general, is that I just did not like any of the characters. I mean, I liked what's his name? Was it Hunter? The guy who looks like Rambo?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only reason I liked him, was because he literally just looked like Rambo and clone trooper armor. Like,
Yeah.
I just
Is
did
it
not enjoy
is
any of the
the
characters.
big one named Wrecker or something? I thought he was kind of
Yeah.
annoying at times. Just the fact that he was, I don't know, it seemed like he had like he was just so much dumber, or made to be dumber than the rest of the Bad Batch, and he was almost like an infant, it seems,
Yeah.
and so
I
I didn't really like
hate-
that.
I hate characters that are like, quote unquote, the strong character, and they're just completely stupid, and their only character trait is that they're strong. I
Yeah.
absolutely hate that. Like, that's how Zeb is in Rebels, and I can't freaking stand him. Like, I hate characters that are like that. At least with like the Hulk. With that, you have Bruce Banner, because Bruce Banner brings a lot to the team intellectually, because he is one of the smartest people in the Marvel universe. And then you have the Hulk side of him, which is like the combative side. But with Wrecker, he's literally just the strong character, and I just it's one of my least favorite tropes in character archetypes in fiction. Like, they're almost always the most annoying character to watch or read, and I just can't stand it.
Yeah. So
I don't even remember their names. That's how bland the characters were.
yeah,
It was very
there was
frustrating.
definitely a lack of a connection with those characters, and I remember watching the unfinished episodes, and I felt more of a connection to them in those episodes than I did at the current release. So.
And it's also frustrating because the clones, clone troopers in the Clone Wars are sometimes some of the best characters in the show.
Oh, for sure,
like
yeah.
Rex and Echo and Fives. Those original clone trooper characters made them actual human beings, because in the prequel movies they're mindless drones. They don't really have any character. I mean, in Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan and Cody have a little bit of banter, but that's all of the characterization that the clones get in those movies. But, I mean,
Yeah.
the cartoon changed that so much, because each clone is so distinctly different from the other. And it was just frustrating to have this, like, special ops, like, they were the Navy SEALs of the Clone Wars, and for them to be just so bland is just so disappointing to me.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about the Bad Batch, or should we move on to the Ahsoka arc?
I think it's time to. I can't really think of other problems, because I mean, I think we pretty much covered all the bases. That was like, it was dragged out, the characters were boring, but it's what did you think of the Ahsoka arc? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but
yeah, I think it was just totally unnecessary. There was just so much of that arc I was so bored by, and it did not need to be 4 episodes long. I think that is completely unnecessary. It could have easily been 2 episodes or 3 at the most. But there's that one episode where they try and escape from the prison cells that they're in and stuff, and then they end the episode right back into the prison cell. That whole episode was completely wasted. We started at point A, we went to point B, and then we got back to point A. Nothing was accomplished in that episode. Maybe a little bit of characterization, but that could have easily been put in one of the other episodes. So
yeah.
it was definitely dragged on for way too long, and took up precious episodes that could have been used for something like an Attack on Coruscant episode, where we get to see Grievous capturing the Chancellor, like in the old cartoon version of the Clone Wars. Or we could have seen something with one of the other Jedis, like Kit Fisto or Plo Koon or Aayla Secura, and I feel like that would have been so much more interesting than seeing these characters that we haven't seen before, and don't feel like they need to be there. So it was just a waste of space, I think.
What was really frustrating to me is that one of the things that Clone Wars has done really well throughout its runtime is showing different perspectives from, like, the citizens or the politicians or the Jedi or the clones on how they view the Clone Wars. And it seemed like they were wanting to get, like, kind of like the sisters' view on the Jedi and the clones, but it's literally, like you said, it could have been done in one episode. And the sisters were just annoying to watch, and I don't think they represented their point of view very well. Because I mean, if you look back at the show, like, you get to see how a clone who ran away from the war in the arc where, like, Rex gets shot, and you meet this clone who ran away from the war to start his own life. You get to see these different perspectives, but it just wasn't executed well with the sisters in this Ahsoka arc, and it was just frustrating to watch.
And there was, like, those characters weren't smart at all. They were so dumb, especially the younger sister, because, like, whenever Ahsoka and the older sister are fighting in the spaceship while they're trying to transfer the spice or whatever, then she's like, nobody's gonna take my ship. I will not let anybody take my ship. And then she drops the spice into hyperspace. That was the worst decision that she could have made, and that's what dragged out uh, that arc to make it more than 2 episodes. That could have easily been finished in 2 episodes, and then we would have moved on to another awesome arc that we probably would have enjoyed much more. Like there's the Crystal Crisis arc that is on Utapau that was also unfinished with the Bad Batch. There's just so many other options that we could have had, and I just feel like we kind of got cheated with this. But
Yeah, and it's frustrating because if they wanted her character to make childish mistakes, they should have made it more obvious that she was a child. Because from like the impression that I got was that she was like maybe 15 or 16. Like
yeah,
I don't actually know what her age was, but I mean if she's gonna act like that, they should have made it abundantly clear that she was like 12 or something, you know? Because then it kind of would have made sense, but to be 15 or 16 and to do something like that is completely stupid, and it doesn't make any sense. And like
yeah,
you said, it's only there to make the episode and the arc longer. It was just very frustrating. And I almost stopped watching the show because of that arc. Because I watched one of the, like you said, like on one episode they go to point A to point B and back to point A, and then in the next episode they start in the cell because that's where they ended up at the last episode. And I thought that I was re-watching one of the episodes, and I literally thought, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I clicked the wrong episode. And then I went back to like the menu screen to like click on the newest episode, and I was confused because they look and sounded exactly the same. Like Ahsoka and like the older sister say like the same lines back and forth in each of the episodes. Like, oh, I don't trust you, and Ahsoka's like, we should use the spice for something good. And then the older sister's like says something really edgy about how like there's no good people or whatever. I don't know. It was just so frustrating to watch because like the same character interactions happened in every episode. It was just frustrating to watch.
yeah. It just like the only thing that kept me going with the season was the thoughts of being able to see the Siege of Mandalore. Like we were already so close to the Siege of Mandalore, so I thought, let's just finish it out. Let's tough up through this really boring and really slow set of episodes, and let's get to the Siege of Mandalore.
And what ticks me off even more is that I couldn't tell you what character arc Ahsoka goes through in these episodes.
Yeah.
She's completely the same person. It's not like you can tell in the episodes, especially like the first one, that she doesn't really know what to do with her life, that she doesn't have the structure of being a Jedi in the Republic. But she doesn't change from the beginning of the arc to the end of the arc. She's still the same person. And I was like, okay, well, if you're not going to develop her character, you're not executing the point that you're trying to make from this perspective of these lower level citizens of the Republic, and it's not a very interesting story either. It's like, why does it exist? Like, why did you put this in the show?
Yeah.
And you know how much more of an impact it would have been if we didn't have this arc about Ahsoka, and then whenever at the beginning of the Siege of Mandalore arc, whenever she turns around on the hologram, on the hologram or whatever, and it's her, how much bigger of an impact that would have been if we hadn't watched her mess around with the two sisters.
Yeah, that would have
for 4 episodes.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because this is the last season, and I know there's like rumors of like they might make another one because the Siege of Mandalore and Ahsoka's last arc of the show was very popular. But honestly, if it's going to be even around the same quality as the beginning of the season, then I don't want it to continue. Like I want it to finish on the high of this last arc, you know.
Yeah. Uh, One of the things that I think would have benefited this arc, and would have given a little more reason to have it, is like, because in the beginning when they were first making the arc, the characters of Trace and Rafa was actually supposed to be uh, a guy around like Ahsoka's age, and so he was supposed to be like a love interest for Ahsoka. And I just think having one character there rather than having two sisters, and to have more of a reason for Ahsoka to, like, the guy was supposed to be a love interest for her, so you know it would have made more sense for her to be hanging around them rather than uh, I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly, but I feel like having one character that Ahsoka can talk to and get to know would have been better than having these two separate characters, which we need to learn more about both of them, but we're just not connecting because we're focused on this one character and then we're focused on this character, you know. So it seemed like, at least to me, we could have spent more time getting to know that one character than, you know, having these two sisters arguing all the time and taking up the screen time that we have, which is needed for the arc, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was frustrating because if there would have been a better distinction between, because all we really know is that their parents were killed in an attack and that they don't like Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And the older sister likes to pull it over the little sister's head that, oh, I've been here this entire time. We don't really know anything else about the characters. I mean, the older sister will like do anything to like get her way, and
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much it. And we know that the little sister is an idiot. That is what we know. And it's not like they're interesting to watch or they have really good chemistry. It's just the older sister just being a jerk to Ahsoka and the little sister. That's literally it. No, it's frustrating because one, the arc didn't really seem to have a place in the show, and there wasn't really much of an arc to be had, and then it just wasn't entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you don't have to have explosions and fight scenes to make an episode engaging and entertaining. You know, I mean, there have been plenty of episodes before that there hasn't been a lot of action, but have been entertaining. You know.
Yeah.
It's like the first episode for me that comes to mind is the Padawans on the ice planet trying to get their crystals.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that episode just because you get to learn, there's a lot of world building and you get to know each of these characters really well within just that one episode. I mean, they have like a little bit of an arc over the course of a couple episodes, but just them in that one episode is one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's...
And because that doesn't take a lot of episodes to really flesh out their characters, because in that one episode they go through the trials, because you need to like prove yourself. Wow, that AAT is a sniper. Anyway, I'm sorry, but like in that one episode, they go through those different trials based on their characters, their weaknesses and stuff. Like the Wookiee Gunji, he he's like scared of the water or something, and so his trial to get his crystal is like walking across this super thin ice, and it cracks and stuff, uh, and that's how he gets his crystal. And then there's the that one human boy, I can't remember his name, but he he's like really impatient and stuff, and so he goes off and just picks the first crystal he sees, and it ends up not working well or something like that. And
Yeah,
so
'cause it ends up just being an ice crystal.
and so he has to go back and find the right crystal, and he has to learn that he can't be impatient with it. So that's delving into his character a little bit. And then there was the one girl who was like a Adigalia species or something, and she was like really scared of, I don't know, she was like really nervous and scared, and so she learned to be brave in order to get her crystal. And there's all these different things. There's the Rhodian that relied too much on technology, so he had to rely on his own abilities, and that was only in one episode, and we already learned so much about those characters. And within the first episode of this arc with Trace and Rafa, we hardly learn anything about them, other than, you know, they hate the Jedi, and the older sister drags the younger sister around and guilts her into helping her, you know. So
I don't know. I mean, that's all I have to say about this arc. You know, I mean, I've talked about it like with my dad, and he always has like a really interesting perspective on like Star Wars, because like he grew up in the 70s and 80s, like, and like back whenever like it was the hottest thing on the planet, and and he likes Clone Wars. And I remember whenever the Ahsoka arcs were coming out, it was like a Saturday morning, because that's whenever we used to watch them. And I was like, do you want to watch the next episode? And he was like, is it an Ahsoka episode? I was like, yeah, it's another Ahsoka episode. And he was like, no, he's like, I don't want to watch it anymore. He's like, it's too boring, and I don't like any of the characters. I was like, I agree. And we just like, man, we didn't watch it. We didn't watch it that day just because it left such a bad taste in our mouths.
yeah.
You know, and I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about the first two arcs, is that like it left a bad taste in my mouth.
So with that said, we can move on to the final arc, the Siege of Mandalore. And this arc was definitely so much better than what we got with these first two arcs in season 7. I mean, this is what the whole season should have been from the get-go, was this kind of quality. And it really confuses me why we didn't get that kind of quality from these first episodes. But man, these 4 episodes, the 4 last episodes of this season, is what carries the season. Like, without these episodes, I would say that this season has definitely been the worst season of Clone Wars. But it's because of these episodes that I give the season the praise that it deserves. So, what do you want to say about it?
I think, I mean, I've just watched the last episode last night, and I think this last arc is definitely in the like the top 5 or like the top 10 of the best story arcs in Clone Wars. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if that's just because the last two arcs have been terrible, but I genuinely think that it was one of the better ones, and I really love that Obi-Wan and Anakin are only there in the first episode for just a little bit, because this story arc is definitely Ahsoka and Captain Rex's arc, and I really like that because they were originally created for this show. Like, this show has pretty much been about Anakin's growth and, more importantly, about Ahsoka's growth, because like Ahsoka has really evolved throughout the show,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like one of the best Star Wars characters now, which I think is a real testament of how well the show is. Because in the first two seasons, she's annoying, she's brash, but over the course of the show, she becomes confident. She becomes this great warrior. She's a strategist, and she's wise. She's so much wiser beyond her years, and like Rex was cool from the get-go.
Yeah.
And even when it was his first lines, like in the movie, the Clone Wars movie, whenever like him and Ahsoka are talking, and he says experience outranks everything. I mean, I think that's his character defining line out of the entire series.
Yeah.
And I really like that this last arc focused on them rather than like Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they have Revenge of the Sith, you know. But I mean, those are my initial thoughts on it.
Okay, so let's start with the first episode, which in that first episode, isn't that, let's see, that's with, they don't go to Mandalore in that episode, am I right? Or,
No.
okay, so that's
Or
when,
the start of the siege.
right, and so that's Anakin and Obi-Wan briefing Ahsoka on it, or they're trying to convince the council to have Ahsoka be in charge and lead the siege. And so technically Ahsoka can't do that because she's not a Jedi anymore. And so she can't be the commander. But so they promote Rex to being commander, right? That's all in that first episode? Okay. I thought that was a really good episode, and especially the part where Anakin gives Ahsoka her lightsabers, and when he takes her into that one room and there's all those clone troopers with their helmets painted in honor of Ahsoka, I thought that was a very cool scene. And I liked how all the clones, they still respected Ahsoka enough and called her commander, even though she wasn't technically a commander anymore, you know? I think that just goes to show how it makes the betrayal of the clones even more heartbreaking, just because the relationship with the Jedi is so strong throughout the Clone Wars. So, what do you have to say?
Like the moment when they're walking down. Wait, I'm gonna get a drink real quick.
Okay.
Just the moment when Anakin and Ahsoka are walking down the hallway, and Ahsoka's like, "Why are they still saluting me? I'm not a commander."
Mm-hmm.
And like Anakin's like, "Oh, well, they still respect you." And then they walk into the room like with the helmets painted and everything. I was like, that is such a good detail for the story, and like that's something that I can't imagine anyone other than Dave Filoni ever thinking of. Like, it's such a small detail that just adds so many layers to Ahsoka and to how much these clones respect her. It's such a good idea. Like, it's almost too good to be true, you know. And just and Anakin giving her the lightsabers and be like, "Oh yeah, I made a couple upgrades," and then they're just blue. I thought that was funny, but it's also like really sad because that's the last time when Anakin and Ahsoka like see each other face to face as Anakin, you know. And I don't know. Like as I was watching it, and like he gives them over to her, and then like the alarms start going off, and Anakin leaves. I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, that's the last time they're going to see each other,
Yep.
and it was just so heartbreaking. I don't know. I thought it was great, you know, and just the action bits of this episode I thought were great. Them going to Mandalore and then Duchess Satine's sister kind of leading the charge with Ahsoka,
Yeah.
I just thought was one of the best action battles in the Clone Wars series.
Yeah, and there was that I liked that they were getting into the atmosphere of Mandalore, and then they're all like jumping out of the gunships and stuff. And so then
Hmm.
Ahsoka turns to Rex and says, "I'll race you." And then Rex is like, "Oh, I'm gonna lose." uh,
Hmm.
and then Ahsoka ends up winning, and then Rex is like, "This is nothing new." I liked that little interaction between the two of them. I thought that was funny.
And Rex and Ahsoka have one of the best like friendships in the show,
Oh yeah,
just because they have such good chemistry. Because, like, to me, it's always seemed like Rex has seen Ahsoka as like a little sister, and that's something that I've always enjoyed about her and Anakin's relationship as well. Because because they kind of, or at least it seems like the chemistry between her and the rest of the 501st is like Ahsoka is like the little sister of the family
right.
or whatever. And it's so interesting because now she's like her own grown woman and like she's on par with Captain Rex, and Rex is on par with her. Like they are truly equals. I think that's one of the reasons why I like their relationship so much. Like they all respect each other. It's not like Ahsoka thinks of herself as a higher status than Rex or any of the clones. It's not like Rex thinks he's a higher status than Ahsoka. And I really enjoy their dynamic. And I think it was definitely one of the highlights of the episodes and as of the show in general.
Yeah. So, what did you think about the next episode?
The next episode is when Ahsoka and Maul fight, and they also have some they also get into a discussion about like the Jedi and like their philosophy and stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I mean, the fight I thought was like, okay, well, neither of them are gonna die. They both end up being in Rebels, but I mean, it was still a fun fight to watch. And just their verbal sparring, I thought was also very entertaining and very well done.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that episode.
I would say that episode is probably, well, I don't know. It's hard to choose which of these episodes was the best out of the arc, but I think for me, I enjoyed this episode the most out of all the rest of the
Yeah.
episodes. And I think the reason for
I
that,
think it's the highest. I think it's the highest quality episode in the arc.
yeah, the reason for that is the duel between Maul and Ahsoka, and I really like that Maul knew exactly what was happening, exactly what was going to happen, and he was telling Ahsoka the truth, and so he offers her the chance to join him in order uh, to stop everything from happening, stop Sidious from creating the Empire, stop Anakin from turning to the dark side, and I thought that was a very interesting aspect. You know, even though Maul's way of making that happen was killing Anakin
Yeah.
and killing Sidious, I think it would have been interesting to see if Ahsoka actually teamed up with Maul in order to
Mm.
to fight Sidious or something like that. It was just interesting, and it got me thinking about that. So I thought that was really cool, and just all the dialogue in that is so good. And Ahsoka even like stops and thinks about, like, she's about to join Maul, and then he tells her about Anakin, and that's what stops her from doing that. But I just thought it was an all around really good episode. The fight between them was so cool. It was the most realistic fight we've seen, just because of the mocap and all that stuff that they did with Ray Park doing the moves for Maul. It looked fantastic. I absolutely loved that episode. There was depth, there was action, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
I think the Maul and Ahsoka fight, I think, is one of the best lightsaber fights in Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Just because there is so much, like you said, there's a lot of depth, and it was just entertaining. And I think, especially with like the sequels, some of the lightsaber fights all really kind of suck. Like, people always talk about in The Last Jedi, like Snoke's throne room scene, like, oh yeah, the lightsaber fight scene is so cool. Honestly, it's really not. It feels hollow. I think that's one of the worst things about the sequel trilogy, is that it feels hollow. I mean, the same is true for the fight scenes in it. Like, Rey just swings her lightsaber like a little kid swings a baseball bat, and it does not flow. But in this episode with Ahsoka and Darth Maul, it was definitely a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
because it was such a good fight.
There was, it wasn't just their fight, but like the clones and the Maul's Mandalorians and stuff. The fighting between them was really cool too. Like, especially the aerial combat too. It's always super cool to watch the troopers with the jetpacks going off in the air and just doing all this cool stuff. And there was that one Rebels character, I don't remember his name, but he was like the leader of Maul's Mandalorians, like Maul's second in command. I can't remember his name. But I remember him looking like really weird in Rebels, and he had this like white and red armor, and it just looked really weird. But they really made him look super cool, and I just wanted to learn more about his character from seeing him in this episode. And I had no interest in him in Rebels, so I think that's one of the things that the Clone Wars also does. It's just, it makes you interested in all these other characters, and Rebels kind of missed that. And I think I'll just stop talking, because that leads off into a whole talk about Star Wars Rebels, and we're talking specifically Clone Wars here, so.
Yeah, I mean, but I have only like one more thing about this episode, is that, like, I think is kind of great, is that, like, Ahsoka kind of doesn't believe that Anakin will turn to the dark side.
Right.
But then, like you said, she almost joins Maul. I think that was a very well done. And I think one of the things that, like, I always kind of forget about, especially if it's really well, is the voice acting. Because I mean, voice acting isn't easy. You don't have a set. You don't really act with another actor a lot of the times, because a lot of times you're just by yourself recording your lines. You might be with one or two of the other people, but it's not like acting on stage where you have props. You have these other physical people around you to help kind of bring your character out. And like the same thing with film is, like, like for film you have to show more emotion, especially if the camera is closer to you. and you have the physical, and like you have all these physical surroundings to help you bring you into the scene of what you're playing. But like voice actors don't really have that, and so whenever it's done really well, I forget about it because I just get so involved into the story. But the voice acting, I don't remember her name, but the voice actress for Ahsoka has done such a great job over the time of the show, and like you can tell that she's really improved and has gotten better at her voice acting as just for Ahsoka alone. I think that's something that should definitely be talked about more.
Yeah. I think her name is Ashley Eckstein or something like that. But
yeah, it's Ashley something.
Yeah. It's hard to think of Ahsoka and not think of her. And that's one of the reasons I think I'm kind of hesitant on that leak with Ahsoka being in The Mandalorian played by Rosario Dawson. It is just because I'm afraid she's not going to be able to live up to what Ashley Eckstein has been able to make for the character of Ahsoka. And so that's got me a little nervous.
Her as Ahsoka is just as iconic as like Mark Hamill as the Joker or like Kevin Conroy as Batman. Like she has defined the character of Ahsoka. Like I honestly don't think anyone else could play Ahsoka but her. You know, like if I'm like used to when I would read comic books or like Clone Wars novels and Ahsoka would show up, I would literally just hear her voice for Ahsoka's parts.
Yeah.
Like that's how well defined her character is. And I mean the voice acting overall in Clone Wars is I think some of the best in cartoons, especially like in cartoon adaptations of already existing characters, especially Anakin and Obi-Wan. I don't know the name of their voice actors, but
Matt Lanter and James Arnold Taylor.
Like they do such a great job with their characters. Like,
oh yeah.
Like sometimes when I was little, I could not tell the difference between like Ewan McGregor and Clone Wars Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
you know,
they
like,
sound so similar.
Like to me, they just the Clone Wars character, like the voice actors, just became the characters. And I thought that was something that the show did really well overall. But I mean, I don't have any other thoughts about the second to last episode.
All right, so let's just talk about the Order 66. Those two episodes put together. Let's talk about that.
I remember as a kid, especially like in the old Battlefront game, there was the mission, the Order 66 mission, and like I would spend hours thinking about what if they did Order 66 in the Clone Wars show. Because I mean, the Clone Wars show was my favorite show for such a long time, and like I fantasized about them doing a Order 66 arc where they would kill Ahsoka. And it was something that like I was always worried about until I heard that Ahsoka was in Rebels, and I was like, okay, well, I guess they're not going to do it, but they did. But I was so excited to whenever like I try not to read any leaks or any like spoilers before I watch the episodes.
Yeah.
So like in the first episode of the arc, whenever the Revenge of the Sith starts like at the same time as the Siege of Mandalore, I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to do Order 66, and I just got really excited.
Yeah. It was a long time coming, because there's, you've been building up these clones and their relationship with the Jedis, and there's like Wolf, Commander Wolf and Plo Koon and the Wolf Battalion, and like on their gunships, in Orabesh, it says "Plos Bros" on the gunship, and that's just like a really cool detail. And there's so many of those little details inside of the Clone Wars, and that's what makes it so special. Is that with that kind of detail and those kinds of relationships explored, it makes Revenge of the Sith all the more sad. And this is what the Clone Wars has been building up to the entire time, and then we're finally there, Order 66, and you watch Rex as he gets the message from Palpatine to execute Order 66, and he really struggles to shoot at Ahsoka, and that's heartbreaking right there. Is the fact that these clones spent the entirety of the war getting to know these Jedi, and then just at a moment's notice are able to turn against those Jedi that they've been friends with the entire time and have loved. So it's just heartbreaking to actually see it happen. And then it pits like Rex and Ahsoka against ARC Trooper Jesse, and that's like, because I was getting ahead of myself a little bit, but like after Ahsoka takes out the chip from Rex, Rex is fighting his brothers, and that's got to be something that really hits Rex hard, because he's killing his brothers, and it's just, it's so heavy to think about, and that's why I love Clone Wars so much, is because they're not afraid to have these types of things in their show, and that's what makes Clone Wars great to me. So
it's such a, like, they make a point of like, oh, Rex, set your guns to stun. But I mean, he's still turning his back on everything he knows. Like, he's turning his back on his family. He's turning his back on literally his brothers, so he can help save his friend. And just the loyalty that Rex has for Ahsoka and Anakin is something that always baffles me about his character, because I always forget that. But then, like, he has so many times in the show when, like, he is like literally about to lay down his life for Anakin and Ahsoka, and it's not because that's what he's programmed to do, it's because he loves them and he respects them. I think that's what really makes the stormtroopers and like Rex and the clone troopers, I think that's what makes them so different,
Yeah.
I mean, it even separates like Cody and Rex, because Cody would, I think Cody would lay down his life for Obi-Wan, but it'd be more of that's what he was programmed to do. I don't think he would. I think he would do it maybe out of respect, but I don't. Obi-Wan and Cody just don't have this same relationship that Anakin and Ahsoka and Rex have.
Yeah.
And
one of the complaints I have with the whole thing is when Ahsoka's taking the inhibitor chip out of Rex, and she can't like find where the inhibitor chip is, and so she lays her hands on his head and starts saying, "I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me," and that's how she finds the chip. And that just felt so unnecessary and so forced. And we didn't need a reference to Disney Star Wars in that. Like, just simply have nothing said in that scene. Nothing needs to be said. But by having, I'm one with the Force is with me, which we've never heard before throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars. Why is it just now being said? And
Mhm.
we haven't seen Ahsoka, explore old Jedi ruins and stuff. So where would she have learned that mantra from? It, it just felt so forced. Like Disney's like, hey, remember Rogue One? And
Yeah.
I don't have anything against Rogue One. Rogue One's my favorite Disney Star Wars movie. But it's when things like that don't need to be there are there, that's when it kind of gets me upset. Like it just didn't need to be there, and that's the only complaint I have with the Siege of Mandalore arc. That's it.
Yeah, when that happened, like I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you serious?" I was like, it was such a weird. It almost felt like fan fiction. It
Mhm.
was like it didn't feel like Dave Filoni wrote that. It felt like someone at Disney was like, "Hey, at this part, Ahsoka should say the thing that is said in Rogue One, just so we have a connection between the show and the movie." When
Mhm.
they don't really need a connection because they both stand alone really well.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it definitely didn't feel like a Dave Filoni decision to me. But maybe it was, I don't know, but it didn't feel natural, and I think that's something that Dave Filoni has done really well over the course of the show, is making the like little changes to characters feel natural. Like Anakin's like an entirely different character in the Clone Wars, but it's like subtle changes that he makes to them
Mhm.
where they don't stray too far off from like the character in the movie or something, or a rule established in the movies. He doesn't go so far off to where it's like it's painstakingly obvious. It's like, okay, well that shouldn't have happened. But
Right.
I don't know. That didn't feel like a Dave Filoni decision to me.
Mhm.
But
Um,
I mean, I think that was my only complaint about that episode too.
what do you think about the mall hallway scene?
Uh, it was it was okay. I mean, I think Maul has definitely been redeemed by Clone Wars. I mean, that's just my thoughts on Maul in general, but I don't know, like Maul being escaped to help be a diversion. It was like, okay, well that works for the story, and I didn't really need to see anything else from him. Like,
Mhm.
just to know that he's escaped, I think would have been enough for me, but I don't know.
Yeah. Why I brought this up is uh because I'm pretty sure in the scene, like he uses the panels off the wall, and he like decapitates two clones or something like that, and then
Yeah.
uh, he like cuts off that one clone's arm by like pulling him through the door. I thought that was really cool, and that's another thing that the Clone Wars uh, has always done well with, is the brutal aspect of the war, and they haven't been afraid to include those kinds of deaths in the series. So that's
Yeah.
I just like
Yeah,
that.
like when that happened, I was like, "Oh, Disney did not, Disney didn't make that decision." And
Yeah.
I was like, when that like, because I saw it happen, I was like, "Did he just cut off someone's head?" I was like, Disney probably didn't authorize this, but I was like, okay, like good for you, Clone Wars. Like at least you guys are staying true to the character, because that's something Darth Maul would do,
Yeah.
you know.
I
Because
was really
that's
thankful that that
very,
was in there.
because he wouldn't just punch them. He would try to kill them in the most brutal way possible, you
Hmm.
know. But I thought that was I thought that was a I thought those were good decisions for Darth Maul.
Oh my gosh, there's
But
so many of these guys.
I the rest of my thoughts are like for the very end of the episode.
Hmm.
So I don't know about you.
Uh, let's go. What are your thoughts?
So, like the ship crashes or whatever, and like Ahsoka and Rex bury the bodies, and they
Mhm.
like have the sticks with all the clones' helmets. I thought that was a very sweet and respectful scene. It's also one of those scenes where it's like only Dave Filoni could have come up with that, you know?
Yeah.
And like they may have been trying to kill Ahsoka and Rex, but like they were still family to them,
Right.
and to respect them enough to get their helmets and bury their bodies, I think just really says a lot about Rex and Ahsoka as characters. And I love how at the end of the episode, when things have like calmed down, how it kind of takes like a slower pace, and every shot in the last bit of the episode, like my dad, I was talking to him earlier about it because I was like, oh hey, well, what'd you think of the episode? And he was like, I really liked how like every shot in the end of the episode looked like a graphic novel. He was like, I just really enjoy it when cartoons, especially like Clone Wars, whenever the visuals look like a comic book, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting perspective because he used to be really into drawing and comic books. And it's like every shot in that last bit looks like it was made in an indie film because like there was more focus on framing and how things fit into the picture, and just like the character work of like them burying, I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
And then just to see how stormtroopers and Darth Vader look in the Clone Wars like cartoon fashion,
So much
I
better
was
than
like,
Rebels.
yes. The Rebels look like weird Chinese knockoff brands of the characters,
Mhm.
and like the technology, and like the lightsabers are thin in that show, which doesn't make sense to me. But
I'm.
just to see
Yeah.
them, in like the Clone Wars versions of themselves, I was like, yes, this is like bread with butter. I was like, this is perfect. And just Darth Vader, seeing that one shot of him picking up Ahsoka's lightsaber and then igniting it, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you didn't have to add that, but you did, you know?
Yes. It was a sweet cherry on top of everything that the Clone Wars has been. And like Vader, when he picks up the lightsaber and he activates it, and then he like looks back up into the sky, and you can see uh like an owl flying in the sky, and that's supposed to be, I think it's Morai is what it's called, and that's like the spirit of the the sister from the Mortis arc, who gave her life force to save Ahsoka, and so now Ahsoka and that owl are like directly tied or something. But
Yeah.
like just the depth of him seeing that bird, and I think you can actually like see his eyes through the helmet or something. I didn't see it myself, but I saw somebody say something about that afterwards. Um, but like during that scene, it's interesting to think, what was Anakin thinking during that? What was Darth Vader thinking throughout that scene? So,
And also, something else that's interesting about Darth Vader is that like after watching the prequels, you know he has like the pain of Ahsoka dying and thinking he's responsible, and now I'm sure like at least in this point in time before he knows that Ahsoka is alive in Rebels, like the pain of thinking, okay, I let Ahsoka die.
mhm.
Like I was the one who put her in charge of the Siege of Mandalore. Like he was like at least to me, like what I would assume, he's thinking, oh, I led her to her death just like I led Padme to her death. Like Rex is gone, Padme is gone, Ahsoka is gone, Obi-Wan is gone. Like he's like, everyone is gone now. Like you can tell, especially from the framing of the shot, just that high angle aerial shot, that he is completely alone.
Mhm.
Like he's literally just more machine than man now. I mean, even like the most human parts of Anakin, his friends and family are gone now. Like he has truly become like more machine than man, and not just physically. And I think that was really great.
Yeah.
But
That's what I love about Clone Wars is that it enriches everything in the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy by delving deeper into these characters, where in the prequels we didn't have, like, because of the time jumps that were in it, we didn't have a whole lot of characterization for. And so getting to know these characters a lot more than we were able to in the prequels just makes everything about the Skywalker saga so much better. And when I say Skywalker saga, I'm referring to the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, because if you put in the sequels, that's the Palpatine saga. So
it, in my head, those movies aren't canon, but
yeah,
they're just someone's weird fan fiction.
they
But
they really feel like fan fiction. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
they feel like the equivalent of like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, where it just feels unnecessary and it just feels like fan fiction. That's what they feel like to me. But
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on season 7 Clone Wars. I would, like, as a letter grade, I'd probably give it a B, because the first two arcs were, I, I I wouldn't say that they're bad. I would just say they're decent. That's all I have to say.
a letter grade. Okay, I have one more thing.
Okay,
Is that
go ahead.
I love that the very last shot of the show is a clone trooper's helmet with Darth Vader in the reflection.
Yeah.
That's such like a little like it's like, okay, so the cherry on top is Darth Vader igniting Ahsoka's lightsaber, but then like the extra hot fudge, like once you like start eating the ice cream, is the last shot with Darth Vader in the reflection of the clone trooper's helmet.
Mhm.
And I think I honestly don't know a better way for the Clone Wars to end. But yeah, for me, for the letter grade, I'd give it like a B minus or a C plus. Like those two arcs really at the beginning of the season really bring it down for me. And like I almost stopped watching the show because of them. You know, I mean, I can't think of another arc that I just simply just couldn't have the willpower to watch in the rest of the series. Like I can't think of any. Maybe like the weird Jar Jar episode or something, but I mean even then I don't know. I only enjoyed the Ahsoka arc. I didn't enjoy anything else about this season, but it's such a good ending to the show that it brings up the letter grade to like the B or the B minus, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't have any more thoughts about this season,
Mhm.
but I mean, there's some weird stuff like Mace Windu in the one episode where he's like, oh, well, I've destroyed so many blah 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 droids. I'm gonna give you this opportunity to surrender. And I was like, okay, what? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It was weird because it just didn't seem like Mace Windu to me. But I mean, I think that might just be me.
Yeah.
But I honestly can't think of anything else.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else either.
I think it's so weird because this is like kind of like a quick tangent, but like it really kind of incorporates like Clone Wars, is that like our generation of like Star Wars fans, slash like fans of cool nerd stuff in general. It's so weird because we're like right in between the classic like original fans. Like my dad, he likes the original trilogy, The Mandalorian, and Clone Wars. Like he likes the classic stuff the best.
Right.
And then you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have like the 12-year-old like Fortnite gamers who like the sequel trilogy, and some of like the people who didn't watch Star Wars before The Force Awakens came out, but they watched it because like Star Wars was the hottest thing there for a little bit. And you have these newer fans and the older fans, and you have people like us that are kind of in between. I mean, this is kind of true not just for Star Wars, but kind of for like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and like Pokemon. Like it kind of encapsulates like our generation. Like we're in between the new fans and the old fans, and I feel like the Clone Wars encapsulates how you can improve on something that wasn't very well done, like the prequels, and improve the prequels and also improve the series as a whole. And it's a show that literally if you like Star Wars, you'll like Clone Wars, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't like the prequels, you'll like the Clone Wars. Like my dad doesn't like the prequels, but he likes Clone Wars, you know. And my mom, she likes the originals and the prequels, and like The Force Awakens, and she likes Clone Wars. It's a show that any Star Wars fan can watch, and I think can appreciate and like. And I think that's what's so great about it.
Yeah. And that's where I think Rebels and whatever the Resistance show is, that's where they fail. Is where it's more geared, especially the Resistance show, it's definitely more geared toward kids. And to build up a new fan base where, you know, they like the sequels and stuff more than anything else, which I think is really cheap. But the Clone Wars was definitely like anybody could watch it. If you're a kid, you love it. If you're an adult, you love it. No matter how old you are, there's something that you can get out of it. Whereas in Rebels, I mean, there's a few episodes which I think are really good, but for the majority of the show, I don't get any enjoyment out of it. And I haven't even tried to watch Resistance because I know I won't get anything out of it. But that's what makes the show so great. And I feel like that's something that other shows need to take a page out of that book, so that, you know, it's just, the show isn't geared towards any one audience, because the more people you have in your audience, like, the more you're going to be able to profit off of that show. So why don't more shows do that?
My problem with Rebels is that it likes it. I don't know why, but it always seems like they try to change their mind like every other episode on whether or not they want it to be geared toward like kind of like a Clone Wars audience where almost anyone can watch it and enjoy it, or they want it to be like a kiddie show. And like I've only seen bits and pieces. Like I've only seen like halfway through season 1 of Rebels, and like it's all right, but it's nowhere near like the character depth and the character chemistry as Clone Wars, and
Yeah.
it won't make up its mind on whether or not it wants to be strictly for little kids or it wants to appeal to a wider audience, and that's my biggest problem with it. Is that if it would pick a little kid, if it wanted to be a little kid show, it could just go with that, and I probably wouldn't watch it. But then, like, there are some episodes where it's like they want to appeal to a larger audience, like Clone Wars, and then I want to watch more and I want to know more. But then I watch the next episode and it's like slapstick humor and Chopper is tripping people. It's like come on, please make up your mind. I don't know. And I watched like the first episode of Resistance and like I had a headache because the animation style and like just the animation style of the characters, all of the colors are so stupidly bright that like it hurt my eyes, and just the way characters move were awkward and they didn't talk or act like real humans, and I was like, okay, like this is enough. I've seen enough. I don't need to see anymore. And it was very frustrating because on paper a cartoon show about the Resistance makes sense, because like we've talked about this before, like the sequels don't really make any sense, because like why wouldn't the New Republic be fighting the First Order, and that's something they could explore in a Resistance cartoon. But man, I could not get past the first episode because it just looks so horrendous.
Yeah.
You know, it's frustrating because now there's no Star Wars cartoon, and I can't remember a time when there wasn't a Star Wars cartoon going on. But
Yeah. And you know, we just need more Star Wars content that is like these last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars. That is the highest quality of Star Wars that you can get, I feel like. And so let's just make more of that, because that's what the fans like. We've openly expressed our love for this kind of content. So why can't we get more of this? It just seems so simple yet so hard. Why can't we get more of this? So Disney, please give us more of this.
I mean, what do you think should happen with the Star Wars cartoons?
Well, I want to see the rest of those unfinished Clone Wars episodes and just have like a lost episodes type thing with that. But that's all I want. I don't want anything other than the rest of those unfinished episodes. But after that, I think the next logical thing would to be a show explaining the rise of the First Order and the fall of the New Republic, which honestly I don't think should have happened in the canon, but that is the canon. So if they're gonna do a show, I think that's what it should be about. Even if I don't agree with it. If not, then I think the next best thing is to do something with the High Republic. And it doesn't have to be like this huge, like super deep story. It can literally just be these Jedi just going on different adventures around the galaxy. Like treasure hunts or policing between different species and stuff. It doesn't have to be much, but it just needs to expand the lore around the High Republic age. Which I would rather have that than one explaining the sequels. I don't want anything else related to the sequels. I'm just so burnt out on that. And it makes me so angry to think about. So yeah, High Republic is the way to go, I think.
Because I mean, if you had the creators of Clone Wars, like Dave Filoni and his crew, the same animators, the same writers, same everything, and you, because like I want a High Republic show too, because it's a period of time we haven't seen yet. Like we've seen Old Republic, but now that there's this new time period that they're going to introduce, I think a cartoon show is the perfect way to build onto it and build the lore. And if you just gave the same creative team that made Clone Wars, and you're like, alright, you have full creative freedom, do whatever you want, because the show is at its best whenever it has its original characters with original planets, and like we know, like Ahsoka, Cad Bane, Captain Rex, all these characters that originate from purely the Clone Wars show are some of the best characters, not just in Star Wars, but I mean not just in the Clone Wars, but in Star Wars as well.
Yeah.
And just to give them that creative freedom, but also have the restraint of if it's not successful after if it's not successful after the first season, we're not going to give you the funds to do it. Because I mean, some of the best Star Wars, the Clone Wars episodes happened whenever the show was threatened with cancellation.
Right.
Know? And just to have that extra tension of being like, all right, if you can't make this work, then we're gonna pull the plug on it. You know, just give them full creative freedom. Let them do whatever they want, because they really know what they're doing. Like, they seem to have a love and appreciation and understanding of Star Wars, more so than the people making the movies, it seems like. But...
And one other thing that has to happen if they're going to make another show is that Disney cannot be limiting them to one audience of age. Like, it has to be for all audiences. You can't just limit it down to little kids. You can't have it set for preteens or anything like that. It has to be where all ages can really enjoy and get the most out of this show. So, and don't put any references to other Star Wars content in the show. We don't need that fan service. We're here for something new, so give us new without giving us old.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything else. Like,
yeah.
I think we've covered the bases pretty well.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. This has been a Pass the Gravy podcast, and until next time.